keeping our brains sharp. Who doesn't want that, right?
Yeah,
We always hear that saying about our brains being like muscles, use them or lose them.
it's true.
Well, what if I told you that might be more real than we thought, especially when we're talking about something as serious as Alzheimer's?
Oh, absolutely.
You sent over some fascinating research on exercise and how it can actually impact our risk of Alzheimer's. There's huge scientific review and a really interesting observational study in there.
Yeah.
I think we've got a lot to uncover today.
Yeah, I'm really excited to dig into it with you. What's really incredible to me is just how much we keep learning about that link between, physical activity and how healthy our brains are.
Yeah,
It really does seem like taking care of our bodies leads to taking care of our brains.
I'm all for that.
Yeah.
So let's dive into some specifics, okay?
Yeah.
This review article you sent mentions the hippocampus.
Yeah,
Now, for anyone who's not familiar, this is basically the memory control center of our brains.
right.
What really stuck out to you about how exercise impacts that particular region?
Well, the research on mice showing that moderate intensity exercise can actually protect the neurons in the hippocampus, that was fascinating to me.
Oh.
And even more surprising, it may even help restore the health of those neurons if they've already started to deteriorate a bit.
Okay.
And when you consider that the hippocampus is one of the first areas hit by Alzheimer's,
Right.
this is huge.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
That is really promising. But how does exercise actually protect those neurons? I mean, is it some kind of magical process?
No, not magic, but definitely complex.
Okay.
One key seems to be that exercise helps clear out amyloid beta.
Okay.
This protein, it builds up in the brains of people with Alzheimer's, and it kind of messes with how those neurons function.
Oh, so it's like exercise is helping take out the trash in our brains,
Exactly.
preventing those harmful buildups.
Yeah, preventing those buildups.
I like that analogy. A clean brain is a happy brain, right?
That's right.
So, does exercise simply keep our brains tidy? Or can it actually change the structure of our brains? We've all heard, as we get older, our brains naturally shrink.
Yeah,
Can exercise actually help counteract that?
it seems like it. Studies have found a connection between higher levels of cardiorespiratory fitness,
Okay.
and that's basically your heart and lungs working efficiently,
Right.
and larger brain volume,
Really?
particularly in areas that are really crucial for thinking and memory,
Interesting.
like the gray matter and the prefrontal cortex.
That is pretty remarkable. So, even though shrinkage is part of aging, staying active might help us maintain those essential brain regions. Now, I'm curious about the connection between exercise and blood flow. We know working out is good for our heart, good for our blood vessels.
Yes.
But what's happening in our brains when we exercise?
Well, good blood flow is essential for delivering oxygen and nutrients to our brain cells.
Yeah.
And exercise is like giving your brain a superhighway for those essential supplies.
Oh.
Studies show that it can increase blood flow to the brain, both right after a workout
Oh, wow.
and over the long term.
That's fascinating how something as simple as going for a jog
Yeah, I know.
can have such a profound impact on our brains on a cellular level.
Hmm.
Speaking of cells, this study you sent, it mentions mitochondria.
Yeah.
Those are the tiny powerhouses inside our cells, right?
Right.
What's their connection to Alzheimer's?
So you're right. Mitochondria, those are our cells' energy factories.
Right.
Healthy ones are absolutely essential for our brains to function correctly.
Yeah.
And in Alzheimer's, those energy factories, they start to malfunction.
Oh.
And it leads to what you could call power outages in the brain.
Okay, so like when the lights start flickering because the power grid is overloaded?
Yes,
That's kind of scary to think about.
that is a good analogy. But here's the exciting part. Exercise can actually improve mitochondrial function.
Okay.
It helps reduce something called mitochondrial fragmentation, which is basically when those little powerhouses get broken up and become less efficient.
Oh.
Exercise also ramps up a process called mitophagy, where your cells clean up damaged mitochondria.
Interesting.
It's kind of like taking out the trash
Yeah.
to keep things running smoothly.
Keep everything running smoothly. So exercise is like a mitochondrial mechanic,
Yes.
keeping our brains powered up. I also noticed the research mentioned inflammation.
Yeah,
I know chronic inflammation is linked to so many diseases, including Alzheimer's.
right.
But isn't exercise itself a form of stress
It is.
that can actually cause inflammation?
That's true. Acute exercise, so that short burst of activity,
Yeah.
can temporarily increase inflammation.
Oh.
But think of it like a controlled burn that actually helps clear out debris.
I see.
Regular moderate intensity exercise has the opposite effect in the long run.
Oh, okay.
It actually reduces levels of harmful inflammatory markers in the body that are linked to Alzheimer's.
So it's like Exercise is teaching our immune system to be more balanced,
Exactly.
preventing them from overreacting and causing damage in the brain.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
That's incredible.
And there's more. Exercise also seems to have a positive impact on a protein called BDNF.
BENF.
Yes, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is essential for the growth and survival of brain cells.
That sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It kind of does, but it's very real
Okay.
and very important for learning, memory, and overall cognitive function.
Okay.
Think of BDNF like fertilizer for your brain. It helps those neurons thrive and make new connections.
Okay, I like that.
And guess what? Exercise is like giving your brain a big dose of that fertilizer.
Wow, I'm seeing a pattern here.
Yeah,
Exercise seems to benefit the brain in so many ways.
absolutely. And it's not just BDNF. Another fascinating molecule is irisin, which is released from our muscles during exercise.
Irisin? I've never even heard of that one. Tell me more.
Well, what's amazing about irisin is that it can cross the blood-brain barrier.
Oh, wow.
That protective shield around our brains, meaning it can directly impact brain function.
So it's like exercise is sending special messengers to the brain.
Yes.
What kind of message does irisin deliver?
It appears to be a message of protection. Irisin has been shown to help suppress the accumulation of amyloid beta, promote the growth of brain cells in the hippocampus, and reduce neuroinflammation.
Wow.
So it's like a triple threat against the factors that contribute to Alzheimer's.
Okay, so we've got BDNF, the brain fertilizer, and now irisin, this neuroprotective delivery service.
Yeah,
Exercise really is like a superhero for our brains.
I couldn't agree more. And this brings us to the million-dollar question. What kind of exercise is best for keeping our brains healthy and potentially reducing our risk of Alzheimer's?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. Is there a magic formula?
Well, if there is, it probably involves a mix of different exercise types.
Okay.
We can unpack those a little bit later.
Okay, so we were talking about the best types of exercise for our brain health. It sounds like there's no one magic bullet, but what does the research point to?
Well, it seems like a mix of different types of exercise is probably going to be the most beneficial.
Makes sense.
It's like, putting together a well-rounded workout routine.
Right, a workout routine for your brain.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah.
So what are some of the key ingredients for this brain-boosting workout?
Well, first, we got aerobic exercise,
Okay.
which gets your heart rate up.
Yeah.
Improves your cardiovascular health. We're talking things like brisk walking, jogging, swimming, cycling.
The usual suspect.
Yeah, anything that gets you moving and breathing a little harder.
Makes sense. Healthy heart, healthy brain, right?
Exactly. Then we have strength training, which is super important for maintaining muscle mass and strength.
Yeah.
As we age, those can naturally decline.
Right.
And that can really affect our mobility and independence.
Huge factors in quality of life as we get older.
Absolutely.
So what are we talking about here? Like lifting weights?
Well, it could be lifting weights. It could be using resistance bands. Could even be body weight exercises like squats and push-ups.
Right.
The key is to challenge your muscles regularly.
Okay, so we've got aerobic exercise for a healthy heart,
Right.
strength training for strong muscles. What else should we be thinking about in this brain-boosting routine?
Don't forget about balance and coordination exercises.
So that's a good point.
Those are really crucial for preventing falls, which, can be a major risk factor for people with Alzheimer's.
Yeah, absolutely. What kind of exercises can help with balance and coordination?
Well, things like yoga, tai chi, even just standing on one leg while you're brushing your teeth.
I like that, the one leg.
Yeah, it all helps train your balance and coordination.
Okay, so it sounds like this ideal brain-boosting routine. It's got a mix of activities that get our hearts pumping, strengthen our muscles, and challenge our balance. Is there like a recommended frequency or intensity for all of this?
The general recommendation for adults is at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity aerobic activity per week, spread throughout the week.
What?
And you should also aim for strength training exercises that work all the major muscle groups at least 2 days a week.
That sounds very doable. And I think it's important to remind people, even small amounts of exercise are better than none.
Absolutely.
Taking the stairs instead of the elevator, going for a walk during your lunch break, dancing around your living room.
Right.
It all adds up.
Every little bit counts. And don't be afraid to mix things up. Variety keeps it interesting.
Yeah.
It challenges your brain and body in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you mentioned a fascinating connection earlier between muscle strength and Alzheimer's risk.
Yeah.
Could you tell us more about that?
So this particular study, they found that greater muscle strength was associated with a reduced risk of developing Alzheimer's disease and cognitive decline.
Wow.
And here's the interesting part. This association was independent of things like body mass index, physical activity levels, and even genetic predisposition.
So regardless of your body size, how much you move around in general, even your genes, having strong muscles seems to provide some protection against Alzheimer's.
Exactly, it does. It suggests that maintaining muscle strength throughout life may be crucial for brain health. We still have a lot to learn about the exact mechanisms involved,
Right.
but this finding, opens up exciting new avenues for research and prevention.
Yeah, this ties back to that use it or lose it concept that
Yes.
we talked about at the beginning.
Yeah.
It really seems like challenging our bodies physically can have a huge impact on our brain health. Now, before we started talking about the types of exercise, we also touched on the potential benefits of combining exercise with a ketogenic diet.
Right, right.
Can you elaborate on that a little?
Sure. Remember we talked about how Alzheimer's can disrupt the brain's ability to use glucose for energy,
Yeah.
leading to those power outages?
Yeah.
The ketogenic diet, which is very low in carbs and high in fat, forces the body to switch to an alternative fuel source, ketone bodies. So it's like giving your brain a backup generator in case the main power supply is compromised.
I like that.
Research on the ketogenic diet and Alzheimer's is still in its early stages,
Okay.
but there's growing interest in its potential. Some studies have shown that a ketogenic diet can improve cognitive function in people with mild cognitive impairment or early Alzheimer's disease.
That's really promising, but isn't the ketogenic diet pretty restrictive? Is it something that people can really maintain long term?
It can be challenging to follow, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not for everyone. It's important to approach any dietary changes, especially something as strict as the ketogenic diet, with guidance from a healthcare professional or a registered dietitian.
Right.
They can help you figure out if it's right for you and how to implement it safely and effectively.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, but definitely an area worth exploring further.
Absolutely. And it highlights how important it is to take a holistic approach to brain health.
Yeah.
Exercise is a powerful tool, but it's not the only tool.
Wow. Right.
Combining it with healthy diet, mental stimulation, stress management, and quality sleep, you can create a synergistic effect that really optimizes your cognitive well-being.
It's like creating a symphony of brain-boosting habits.
Exactly. Speaking of habits, let's shift gears a little bit
Okay.
and talk about the practical side of actually incorporating exercise into our lives.
Right.
It's one thing to understand the science,
Yeah.
but how do we make it happen?
Yeah, that's the big question. Let's talk about some strategies and tips for getting started. We've covered so much about how exercise benefits our brains and which types are most effective.
Yeah, a lot of information.
But, for a lot of people, the hardest part is actually making exercise a part of their lives.
Absolutely.
It can be overwhelming, especially if you're not already in the habit.
It's one thing to know you should exercise, but it's another to actually make it part of your routine. But it doesn't have to be this big, huge life overhaul.
Right.
Just start small. Focus on consistency.
That makes a lot of sense. What are some practical tips for people who are, just getting started?
Well, one thing that can really help is to find something you actually enjoy doing.
Right.
If you dread going to the gym, don't force yourself to go.
Right.
Explore different options till you find something that gets you excited to move your body.
Yeah.
Maybe it's dancing or hiking, swimming, playing a sport.
Right. So many possibilities.
There are so many options.
I love that. It's about finding the joy in movement.
Exactly.
And I think it's also important to remember that exercise doesn't have to mean like hours at the gym.
No,
Even short bursts of activity throughout the day can really add up.
totally. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Walk or bike to work if you can. Do some stretches while you're watching TV.
Right.
Every little bit counts. And honestly, don't underestimate the power of just getting outdoors and moving your body in nature.
Yeah.
A walk in the park can do wonders for both your physical and mental well-being.
Absolutely. And for people who might be dealing with, mobility issues, other health concerns,
Yeah,
there's still ways to stay active, right?
absolutely. Chair yoga, water aerobics,
Right.
even just gentle stretching.
Yeah.
It can all be beneficial.
The key is to find what works for you.
Exactly. Listen to your body. Find what works for you. And don't be afraid to ask for help. talk to your doctor or a physical therapist
Yeah.
about creating an exercise plan that meets your specific needs.
I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
So we know what to do, but how do we stay motivated? How do we stay consistent? Especially when, life gets busy and those excuses start creeping in.
That's the million-dollar question.
Hmm.
Um, One strategy that can really help is to schedule your workouts like you would any other important appointment.
Okay.
Put it in your calendar.
Right.
Treat it as non-negotiable.
So make it a priority,
Make it a
not
priority.
just something you squeeze in if you have time.
Yeah.
And what about those days when you really just don't feel like working out?
Mm.
Do you have any tips for overcoming that mental hurdle?
Oh, we all have those days. Sometimes the hardest part is just getting started. Tell yourself you're only going to do 10 minutes.
Okay.
And I bet you, once you get moving, you'll want to keep going.
That's good advice. Just take that first step.
Yeah.
It can also be helpful to have an accountability partner,
Oh, for sure.
someone who can, encourage you, help you stay on track.
Yeah. Accountability is huge. Whether it's a friend, family member, personal trainer,
Right.
having someone to share those goals with, celebrate your successes, it makes a big difference.
Well, this has been, honestly, such an eye-opening conversation for
Yeah.
me. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of just the power of exercise,
Yeah.
not just for our bodies, but for our brains.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's incredible how much control we actually have
Right?
over our cognitive health through, these really simple lifestyle choices like exercise.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one message you want to leave with our listeners today?
If there's one thing I hope people remember, it's that moving your body is one of the most powerful things you can do to protect your brain and potentially reduce your risk of Alzheimer's disease. It's never too late to start.
Yeah.
And even small steps can make a really big difference.
It's like we've been given this amazing gift, the ability to move our bodies.
Right.
And by doing so, we're safeguarding our minds.
Yeah.
I'm ready to lace up my sneakers and go for a run right now. How about you?
I think a walk in the sunshine is calling my name after this.
Sounds like a perfect plan.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
My pleasure.
This has been such a fascinating look at exercise and brain health. For our listeners, keep those bodies moving and those brains sharp. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.